Alrighty then, we are live for the second user group of what's this? June. Holy hell. Yeah, we're halfway through this year, folks. It's fantastic. So time is flying. We are going to do an open mic night. So basically, if anybody, I don't know if there's anybody new here or whatnot, but we're just going to chat. No set topic. We will go where the flow happens, and because I was so busy before this happened, I don't have anything prepared. So we're gonna have to see if I can find anything to break the ice. So anybody have any apps that they'd like to share with us that they've discovered recently? That's always something that can go get us started on something. War Thunder, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I know it's a fairly new thing. I'll see if I can't find a link to it. It's called Fresh Editor. It's a new like command line editor that'll let you do a whole bunch of stuff. It's got it'll do tabs inside. It does a whole bunch of stuff. Let me see if I can find it.
Fresh
I found it off a
editor.
YouTube video. It's like a terminal-based IDE written in Rust. I think it said it was.
Oh, well, of course it is. um, is it like do they emulate Vim or anything like that? Do you know?
I believe it has a Vim mode
Okay.
somewhere. I haven't gotten too deep into it, but it's available like all over the place. Of course, they have the good old curl into bash if you're like that, if you want to install it that way. But
Well, that's definitely the way
um,
you should install it, right?
of course,
No, is it sudo pipe to bash?
no, shockingly not. Although I
Well,
think it probably does ask for your sudo password
I'll
to
just do that
unpack.
anyways, just in case.
Yeah, but it's cool. It's got themes. It's got all kinds of different themes. They even included some themes like the old the Microsoft like blue background with like gray highlights and whatnot, like some of the older systems. They've got um let's see, they got Solarize, Dracula, a bunch of different stuff. It has built-in abilities to like do syntax highlighting, I think is one of the things they said it does. I don't know. It's kind of cool. I was looking into because it can do tabs inside itself. You can also do a terminal tab inside Fresh. And then I started playing with Lazy Git along with Fresh so I can have a tab to do my actual Git for my Git repo and the other tab to actually work on code and whatnot. It will respond to mouse input in the terminal if you want to go up to the file menu, but you can also do key bindings. It seems like it's a pretty cool app.
Cool. D-dubs? We can't hear you, D-dubs. You're having audio problems. You're not muted. Maybe the wrong source. That the Linux audio bug always hits someone. Last time it was Greg, and this time it's D-dubs. One day it will be my turn again. It'll come around. It'll come around. All right. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, so I found an app called Vox Type, which is basically it's like a push to talk, voice to text kind of thing. And it uses Whisper running in a local model on the GPU. So it is essentially what Ubuntu is going to be doing when they dip their toe into the AI waters, but it's already there. And it's kind of fun. It works pretty good. It goes into wherever you have your text prompt. And I don't use it a lot. It was mostly a novelty, but considering the relatively sad state of accessibility for Linux, it's kind of a neat feature
Cool.
to have. And I think, just as an aside or an add-on to that, I know some people are really like, freaked out that Ubuntu wants to get into AI, but I feel like their first entree with this, it's going to be ML, not necessarily AI, right? Because that's just speech to text is really more of a machine learning model versus like an LLM type of thing. And so they're going into AI without going all in, and they're doing something that helps with accessibility. So I think they're trying to thread the needle. I don't know if it's going to work, but we'll see. But anyway,
Well,
Vox Type, if anybody wants to check it out.
cool. I have one saved in my LinkedIn that I was going to make a video on called Speed of Sound. It doesn't really do anything other than like type for you. Um, I don't know if it's even still being updated because I've had that in my list for, oh goodness, when did I save that? Oh, at least a few months ago, so it's been a while. Um, I think the AI thing is interesting with the Ubuntu because it doesn't matter how they approach it, they're gonna piss some people off because some people are just completely anti AI. D-Dubs, did you get your audio fixed?
I believe so.
Yeah. Did you want to go ahead with what you were gonna say?
Yes. By the way, if you put your mute button under the bottom of the mic, because of the way you installed it, it's hard to see that it was muted.
Yes.
In my never-ending search for terminals, I've been experimenting with one called Wave Terminal, and of course, it has AI built into it. But the nice thing is, one little button and it's gone. It's out of your face, and you're back to a terminal. It has a lot of nice features, panes, and so forth, all the things you kind of expect. But it also has a file browser built in as well as a widget that you can just open and close. Click on it, brings in your editor. It's very configurable. It's very fast. It's kind of nice. So, like I say, I hope it continues, and doesn't sort of like force the AI agent down your throat. Um, but the other, just to briefly talk what Greg was talking about with AI and Ubuntu, it's kind of funny because a true text to speech is actually not an easy thing. I remember when BMW had it, the voice activated stuff. And if you had an accent or use expressions, or, it was very difficult. And I even see it with the Google and other devices, they don't understand what you say. So I think a true text to speech where it understands what you're also trying to do is going to actually be a fairly complicated model. Because you say, "Oh, I want to run this command." Well, that's not really the command you want, or to know that, by the way, you need sudo for that. Do you want me to elevate this for you? To truly make it worthwhile to talk to your computer, not just have it dictate. That's an easier thing to do. So it'll be interesting to see how they actually produce it. I think it's going to be kind of a waste of their money, but what do I know?
Well, I mean, the idea for text to speech has been around since the 90s, right? Maybe even before then. I remember we went into Comp USA and bought Dragon Naturally Speaking in a big box. It was like $400 or whatever, and they had a mail-in rebate. You almost got it for free. That was horrible. I mean, even if you were clear spoken, it didn't recognize what you were saying half the time. Um, and then we have these things on your mobile phone or whatever now that you talk into your keyboard or whatever with the Gboard or whatever, and
Exactly.
half the time that doesn't know what you're talking about.
That's why I say to truly make it worth to replace your keyboard and everything else, so to speak, it would have to understand your intent. And what's interesting is you look at some of the AIs that are out there as they get better, they're getting a little bit better at figuring out what you really meant. I don't know if anybody else has ever read the book Moon. Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Mhm.
Anyway, it's a really good book by Heinlein. And a computer becomes sentient. And one of the things that he bitches about is people, they use a language called Logland to program, and it's always garbage. So he has to sit there and rewrite it anyway. So that's, in my mind, that's what AI is doing in the background, or will be doing in the background. Sort of understand what we really wanted to do, and then we'll do it.
I gotta remember, I'm not a developer, but it's always seemed to me the best way to do that kind of thing is to have dedicated, instead of trying to make everything work. Like you can say whatever you want in whatever way you want. So like I don't know, create a to do for tomorrow to go to shopping, whatever, right? Instead of being able to having the software try to recognize every permutation of that phrase, you just have one way that the user has to say it, and then work very hard on making the software recognize that one way of saying it, or maybe two ways of saying it, or whatever. And that's just the way that it works. Instead of trying to promise the world of the English language and then try to do that into every language, it's just way too much to bite off.
Well,
it's never going
that's
to be
the
good,
problem.
right?
Because you not only have the languages, but you also have the expressions and the regionals. That's, pop versus soda versus, you name it.
Yeah, supper versus dinner. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of, it will be interesting to see what they actually come up with, and I will be surprised if it's actually anything usable out the gate.
Yeah. I have high expectations that it'll be a traditional canonical product there. Well, they'll use it for a little while or work on it for a little while, and then just we'll never hear about it again. Like I know that they're still working technically on Flutter, but with Flutter, but when that was first announced, it was like, oh my god, this is going to be like the future of programming on Ubuntu, and I think Google kind of left them holding the bag there, but this might be the same kind of thing. So, just speaking of apps, someone I believe it was actually on the last LUG. I may be wrong. It might have been a podcast, but someone pointed out a application called Hyfile, Hifile. I think it was in the chat, and I've been using this for a little while because you guys know how I really like my file managers, and it is interesting. It's trying to do a lot of what Crusader does, but in a more modern UI and without the entire KDE stack, obviously. But it's actually been pretty good. But one thing that's been interesting for me, actually, is that I still don't need a graphical file manager anymore. I've completely lost my need for that type of thing. Now I just use Yazzie, and it's just good enough. I don't need. I find myself dragging and dropping way less than ever before, mostly because half the time it doesn't work in Wayland. So the graphical file manager I just don't use anymore. So that was my contribution to the apps of things that I found.
Sorry, to dovetail on that, Yazzie, by the way, is getting drag and drop. It's a plugin.
Oh, like the dragon thing that was there for Ranger all those years ago.
I don't know. I haven't tried it in Ranger. I saw it pop up the other day. Somebody's working on some code for it.
Oh, that's cool. I probably still won't use it, but that is cool because I know a lot of people's complaint about using a file manager in the terminals that they can't drag and drop into stuff. So, all right. So, anybody try any new distros lately? Maybe Butterbean or anything like that. Drew wanted to flip me off so bad there. Just you can see it on his face. Anybody try? I know. D-Dubs, go ahead.
Sorry. Azure, of all things, Azure for beta. I was pleasantly surprised just how kind of well it was put together, stripped down to the absolute bare minimum. Out of the box runs about 200 megabytes based on Fedora, and I've thrown about 14 different Dockers at it so far, and it is just so much better than what I was using before. So I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised.
What were you using before?
A combination. I had a Debian server running just straight Docker. There's another one that I was using called Umbrel, Umbrel, also based on Debian, which is very, very nice. It was doing pretty much everything I wanted. It has a nice store. So if you say, oh, I want a Jellyfin server, or I want CRXNG or whatever, and you just boom, click, it installs it for you and you're done. And that was actually working pretty well until I was trying to do things a little bit outside of the box. Like I wanted to use my NAS storage or other things. And it only, for example, allowed connection with SMB. If I modified the base OS at all, the next time there was an update, it was gone. There was no way to make that persistent. So, once I started playing with this, and the persistence is really, really easy to do. It's standard Docker stuff, and it's been flawless for me so far.
Nice. Do you feel dirty using it at all, or just have you overlooked the nature of it?
Yeah, I hate to say it, it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but yeah, if if they themselves are using it, and I remind myself, yes, Microsoft is an evil corporation, but there are some good people there too. Like the one that found the XZ bug was a Microsoft
Mhm.
employee. So we'll see what happens with it long term. It's based on Fedora, and if it really really got bad, I'd probably look and dig in to see how they trimmed it so deeply. Because I mean, it's bare. I mean, from the libraries to everything. I mean, you can't even install a GUI if you wanted to. I mean, you'd really have to break it to do it. Not that you really want to, but it's been interesting. Like I say, it's been surprisingly good.
All right. Let's talk about and if anybody has had any Linux wins recently, I'll go first. I have actually got DaVinci Resolve to work on NixOS this last week. That video that I posted on Monday, I edited that entire thing on Linux for the first time in months, or maybe even a year. Um, it felt great. I mean, it felt wonderful not having to go over to the Macintosh in order to actually do an edit. So, that's my Linux win. I've been kind of riding high on that for the entire week. It's just been was really really cool. Granted, it was a 30 gigabyte file at the end of it because I was of some codec shenanigans that Resolve always has on Linux, but that was really good. So, has anybody else had anything that they've been really successful at recently when they've been, tinkering around with Linux that they would like to share? And if not, have you had any horrible failures that you'd like to share recently that you've done things? Drew?
I just failed rebuilding Cosmic for Debian. Apparently they switched their Rust version from one release to another release. And so I was like, 45 minutes, let it go, let it go, let it go. And then all of a sudden it's like crash. And I'm like, oh, that's great. I have no idea why. And then I realized they went from 1.93 to 1.95, and it was just like, son of a bitch, right?
Yeah.
But the reality of it is ultimately a win, right? Because it did finally run, and it's now I literally just pushed it to my Git. So
Cool. They don't keep like a list of changed versions somewhere?
I did not see it. If there was, I mean, I looked at the release notes and there was no change to it. So, I mean, as far as like, so yeah, there's probably a better way for me to do exactly what you just said, Matt. And yeah, I'm gonna look into that because apparently I'm too stupid to know it changed.
No, that shit happens.
Yeah.
You just don't want to have to spend 45 minutes every time they update to Rust, because Rust updates almost as much as Python does. So, War Thunder, go ahead.
Yeah, so in my quest this year to get rid of VirtualBox and to move entirely to KVM for my virtual machine needs, I had set up what I call my play server. It's an old Dell Optiplex I got from a local store that I'm running Proxmox on, and I've got a RX 550 GPU in it. And that's important to know because I started playing with PCI pass-through. One of the things that's a pain point for me in Linux is I'm an engineer and I use SolidWorks, and that doesn't work on Wine. It doesn't work great without a GPU. I can get by for some small parts, but as soon as you start dealing with assemblies, things get weird really fast. And while SolidWorks can scale, it prefers GPU acceleration. So my thing that happened pretty soon or pretty recently here is I managed to PCI pass through, and I got Parsec set up so I can Parsec into that VM. It's completely headless. So when I launch Parsec and I log into Parsec, it will attach to that VM. It will set the resolution to whatever I'm logging in with. And then I have full GPU acceleration. So I can do all of my SolidWorks needs and not have to worry about anything going up to the cloud or whatnot. It's just my cloud that it goes to. And I was kind of proud of that because Traditionally, I've had a lot of issues with KVM. I know it naturally doesn't do 3D acceleration. So being able to pass a GPU through really helps in that regard and really works well now. I'm kind of happy with it.
That's awesome. I have never been successful with GPU pass through ever. Like it's so reliant on what motherboard you have, especially on the older ones. Like I've never had one that just like, oh yeah, this is gonna work. Yeah, I had one computer where it said it worked, so I delved into like it was like the old style like blue and gray BIOS. I was in there for like an hour. I never found the setting that would let it turn on. Eventually, I was just like, yeah, great, gave up.
One thing I have not figured out is I know AMD cards have a vendor reset bug, and I do experience that where sometimes I just have to reboot the Proxmox system again or reboot the VM again for the GPU pass-through to work. I had a script that I had found on the Proxmox forums that was working. It stopped working. My solution now is to not deal with it, and when it stops working, reboot it a couple times and just pray that it starts working again. Hasn't happened too many times, but it has happened a couple times.
Yeah. I have a whole rant about Proxmox, but it's all my complaints about it are all 100% user stupidity errors. So it's just not fair to criticize it. Before we move on, Greg, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. D-Dubs, you're next.
Yeah, my win actually of the week was with Hyperland and getting pretty much the conversion to Lua done on all of my projects, which I was actually kind of proud of myself that I got it done way before the deadline. So, yeah, I like that as a win.
Cool. Are you still maintaining ZanyOS and?
Yep.
And you did all that and went and redid all that in Lua?
Yep.
You are a glutton for punishment.
Actually, believe it or not, that was the easiest part because it's all in Home Manager, and then basically, I got a parser and I parse it out when I do a rebuild. So I didn't have to actually manually rewrite everything. And when you want to make changes, you still make it in Home Manager, basically in Hyperland still. But when you build it, it builds you a Lua.
Oh, that's cool.
That worked out really well. With the other project with Cool Dots, I had to do everything manually.
I did go through when I tried Hyperland for a little while and rewrote everything in Lua. It took a couple hours. It wasn't too bad. It felt a little harder because the documentation isn't quite where you want it yet, right? But it was fine. Hyperland's still too buggy for me, but that's just because it has to be me. Like it has got to be me at this point. Like I was having this weird situation where I have 3 monitors, and I was just sitting here, and all of a sudden, all 3 monitors changed position like over and over again, like really, really fast. It was making me dizzy. The only way I could get it to stop was to shut the computer off. It wouldn't even go into a TTY.
That is very weird.
Yeah, it was weird. It's probably a.
Are you on 55.4?
I don't know, whatever stable's on.
It might still be at 2. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm at the point. I've talked about this before. I'm at the point where I don't want to look at versions. So and Hyperland's not at a point where you can't. You have to know what version of Hyperland you're on. At least it feels like that. Anyways, Greg, go ahead.
I'm gonna legally petition to change your name to EdgeCase. You always seem to find the fun stuff. I had been maintaining a Windows PC for my ham radio stuff, just because there was sort of this like, well, you kind of need these apps, and one of them is for Flex Radio, which is a software-defined radio, and in order to control it remotely, you needed like this Windows app, or at least you used to. Recently, somebody came up with a Linux app that works for it. And so I kind of started digging in. I'm like, well, what else is there? So my Linux win is basically I replaced that Windows machine with a Linux box that can do all my ham radio stuff, control my local radio, and do the Flex Radio. And I was particularly proud of it's called Aether, or AETHER, Aether SDR. And it's only out on App Image, but I kind of did like a little Nix wrapper around it so that it pulls the app image in and everything I need. Because I was like, I don't want to have like this major app I need be non-declarative. So now it's declarative, which is kind of fun. And it all sort of works. And because I'm using, it was a bit of a bear and I'm still not quite there yet, but I have Hyperland because I wanted to have a tiling window manager on it so I could, some of the ham radio apps, when you run them in concert, you kind of want to have this window there and this window there and all this kind of stuff. And you can do that. You can define for the window types where you want them. And it's so much nicer than Windows was. So I was able to excise one more Windows machine from my life.
On the Nix thing, the app image thing that you did, that's one of the coolest things about Nix is those little discoveries that you get where you're like, oh, you know what, I can do that with the Nix language. I think my very first one of those that I did was I wrote a script in Nix language in Nix to keep OBS to keep the screen on while OBS is running. And it just runs it as a systemd service. So basically, I've moved all of my systemd services over to my Nix config, and that's just the way that it works now. I'm dreading the moment that my NixOS challenge ends, and I have to go back to doing everything to systemctl enable -- now yada yada. It's gonna be horrible.
I thought to myself, because the way you embraced OpenSUSE during that challenge, I thought to myself, when Matt tries Nix, he's probably never going to go back. So I don't know that when it's over, I don't know that you want to go back.
We'll see. I know that when Drew, Nate, and I did that weird Wheel of Doom challenge thing, I used Arch. It took me a good 2 days to remember how to install like packages and stuff like that. It's really weird when you spend all of your time, going into a config file to install an application and then having to rebuild to go to the terminal just to install the application. It seems like it would be easier, but it just was completely out of my muscle memory at that point. Like now, I do use Nix Shell, which is kind of similar, but also not really, because I'm building like a Nix Shell config. Like it lives in a directory, and then I just point it at that, and it's still declarative instead of being a regular package manager.
Nix Shell is awesome. When you said that high file thing, I just fired up a terminal and did a Nix Shell and installed it real quick and looked at it and thought it was cool, and then exited out and it's gone. Like I'll stop talking about Nix now, but I love it, and it helped me with my ham radio stuff. So yeah, that's like a double nerd win for me.
One day we'll do a whole episode or a whole lug on Nix. It might just only be 3 or 4 of us that show up, but it'll be fine. All right.
Snowflakes.
Yeah. GNU to Linux will I'm not watching that. I'm on a real distro. All right. It's your turn, GNU to Linux. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to go back to software discoveries. I recently used something called Screen Steam. It's an app for Android, actually. It's on F-Droid, and what it does is it allows you to display what's on your phone on any other computer on your network, such as one of your Linux computers. It has a little web address. You just log into that address in a browser on one of your other devices. So if you have that specific need, you want to show something that's on your phone screen on another device for whatever reason, I thought that was a neat little app that allowed you to do that.
Cool.
In addition to that, I'm going to talk about distro that I have tried recently, right? And the backstory to this is that I got tired of using even though I love my Fire TV and the remote control, and I use that as the whole nerve center for my TV and all the different apps and everything. When you're on some of the major streaming services, there are, unless you pay extra, there are ads. And I did an experiment. If I go on in a browser, can I watch the same content, movies or television program, on those same streaming services that I have passwords for? And will they strip out the ads? And the answer was yes, for all of them that I tried. So then it dawned on me, okay, well, I don't want to have to watch it on my desktop with a 24-inch monitor. I want to watch it on my 32
Drew, something's going wrong with Jitsi. Service will resume in 16 seconds, 15 seconds, 14 seconds. That's probably too many people, I'm guessing. We'll see. I noticed that it kicked a whole bunch of other people as well. I wonder if we're going to need to restart the whole server. We'll see here in a second. See if it'll let me back in. All right, where's my mouse? Probably log in. I wonder if it kicked everybody. Yeah, it kicked everybody. That's awesome.
Well, it was me then.
No. It wasn't you. It was everybody. It was
Okay.
it was the whole crew. Drew,
Yeah.
something's wrong.
Yeah, I thought it was me, and then I looked over at the YouTube stream and saw the same error broadcasting on YouTube.
Yep, that was like Jitsi's was like, nope, I'm done. All right, GNU to Linux, you were saying something. I don't. I kind of lost it in the chaos. So you want to go ahead and continue on?
Sure, I will continue. So yes, I was building up a head of steam to say that I tried a new distro, and it was for a reason. I purchased a small form factor PC to connect via HDMI cable directly to my television. That way, I could watch content on popular paid streaming services in a browser, which I normally don't recommend, but I discovered that I could watch these movies and television programs and strip out all the ads if I use Firefox with uBlock Origin. So for that reason, I wanted a dedicated computer. And what I did was I purchased a small Dell Optiplex, it's like 7 inches by 7 inches, small little, square device. And I needed to figure out a distro. Obviously, I wanted to use Linux for this. And I discovered something called Plasma Big Screen, which is not a distro, but it is a desktop environment that you could use. It's been worked on for a while, but what I did was I downloaded KDE Neon because there's a nightly version that has Plasma Big Screen by default as the desktop environment. So KDE Neon's, of course, a rolling release. It has all the latest Neon stuff, but it's based on an Ubuntu LTS. And as soon as I installed it, sure enough, it has large tiles. It's made to be used as a television interface, like with a remote control of some kind, or wireless mouse, or some other way that you can control it. If you're sitting at a so-called 10-foot interface, like back on your couch, or in my case, it's about 4 feet across my desk, and it's pretty cool. That was an easy way to install the Plasma Big Screen desktop because it was included. I think it will soon be coming to other distros. And then I figured out for the first time, I installed KDE Connect, which I had never used before, but I'd heard good things about. And I realized that I could use my Android phone as a remote control to control Plasma Big Screen with its large tiles and its interface suited for a large screen television. And I was really happy. It worked really well. And in addition, I purchased a small dedicated, like size of my palm, kind of remote control, which depending on how you use it, you may like more or less than holding your phone in your hand with KDE Connect. But so it's in the Ubuntu family because it's yes, but yeah, it looks quite a bit different, and I think Plasma Big Screen is pretty cool if you are one of those people that wants to have a distro up on your television and have an interface that's not one of these other like a Roku or a Fire TV. I think it's very well suited for that.
All right. So I have two things to say. First, I'm surprised. Have you tried Kodi? Because Kodi does kind of like the same thing, but it's like a dedicated app. And go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I'll answer that question first before you get to the next one. Yeah, the answer is, okay. I tried LibreElec first. I didn't want to too much into this, but since you asked, the first thing I tried was LibreElec, and LibreElec's really cool. If you love Kodi, LibreElec is, as they say in their tagline, just enough OS for Kodi. If you love Kodi, it's perfect for that. It's very lightweight, and I put that first on this small form factor PC. It worked great, and I was able to control it, using my phone, because they have their own dedicated app called Core, Kore. But the thing is, it's just almost, to me, it's almost the same thing as having Fire TV or Roku. It doesn't work in a browser unless you download they have their own nightly version where you can then use a browser. And it's not in their official version. I think they're up to version 12. Their nightly version 13 point something. It basically puts puts the LibreElec interface in the background and lets it install some of these browsers like Firefox or Chromium as a flat pack, and you can use it that way. But after using that for several days, I was intrigued to try Plasma Big Screen. So then I overwrote LibreElec and I tried Plasma Big Screen, and I kind of like it better. It's a full distro, unlike LibreElec, which is this, purpose-built distro that just, runs Kodi and has this additional capability to run some extra apps as an add-on. KDE Neon is, of course, a full-blown distro, and it has the big tiles that allow you to use it as a big television interface. So that's what I went with after trying LibreElec.
Okay. Just briefly, the other thing I was going to say is that they make these little controllers that have like a full-blown keyboard on them and trackpad. They're like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches by, like a square thing. And they're not even all that expensive. So if you ever felt because I don't like typing on the screen on the phone. Like, and sometimes you just got to type into a keyboard when you're using those big screen interfaces. They make those like little bitty keyboards, and I have one. It's fantastic. Like, it's really, really good. It was like, I don't know, $80. I don't even know if it was that much. It's really, really cool. Yeah. In fact, it's that exact one.
RII.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the exact one that I have. It's really, really cool. When the voice stuff doesn't work on the Fire TV, that's what I end up using. So yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, Dane, go ahead.
I think Jacob was next.
Sorry, you were at the top, and you're gonna need to turn your gain down just a little bit. You're shouting in our ears. Maybe are you coming through like a headset on your? Oh.
Yeah, I was just saying Jacob was next before we got booted.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and re-raise your hand, and we'll have Jacob go. Okay, that way I don't lose you. Jacob, go ahead.
Hey, first time participant here, so just wanted to welcome myself. And
welcome.
Anyway, my win of the week was getting mouse bindings working on my mouse under Hyperland. So this has been a problem for me for a really long time, where if I was using like Web or something to try to get the key sim of the mouse buttons, it just wasn't registering anything. And so for the longest time, I just thought it wasn't possible that, the mouse's onboard memory was handling all the button presses and it wasn't actually sending any events through to the system. Well, I finally found out that there's actually a way to disable that. If you there's a program called Solar that can handle. It's a Logitech G502. So I just found out about this, that it can handle all the configuration, and all I had to do was disable onboard profiles, and then it started sending all the buttons through to the system. So then I could actually make key bindings using the key sims in Hyperland. So that's just something I've been dealing with for like months and finally got figured out. So I'm really happy about that. Another thing I wanted to quickly mention, because I think it was who was it? I'm sorry, I don't remember now. Somebody was talking about moving their Hyperland configs over to Lua. There's some really cool stuff that I've been able to do with Lua since Hyperland moved. Notably, or the most recent thing, is having my second monitor dim when there's no active window on it. That's something that wasn't possible with Hyperland, at least to my knowledge. But because Lua exposes like the events, like the window open, window close, and stuff like that, you can actually have it check and see is a window open? Have you moved a window to that monitor? Is that monitor focused? And if it's not, you can dim it. So that's something cool that I've been playing around with.
Cool. When D-Dubs and I were talking about the Lua transition back when Vactory first announced it, I was very vehemently against it. Mostly because of Lua, and also because Vactory changes his mind, and I'm very worried that in 2 years or whatever he'll say, "Oh, again, well, we're gonna do it in a different language." But
Yeah.
I will say that it does allow you to do quite a bit more than what Hyperland allowed you to do, because those were just key pairs. But it's not. One of the really cool things about Hyperland when it first came out that you could say it had really good documentation, and the configuration language was easy to use for the most part. Like, it wasn't quite as easy as i3, but it was almost as easy as i3. Till you add a bar onto it and it got complicated, right? Now you can't say that anymore, right? It's not a new user friendly window manager, because you have it's basically DWM. You know what I mean? You have to learn a programming language in order to configure it, and because of the speed at which Vactory has done this, the documentation hasn't caught up yet, which means that you can't send someone and say, hey, if you want to use Hyperland, which is the most fully featured, unfortunately stable Wayland compositor that we have, you can't point a new user and say, hey, go use this one, and if you get stuck, you can go look at the documentation, because it's just not there yet. So
yeah, I completely agree. I was in the same boat as you, where I was vehemently against moving to Lua. I'm not a programmer. I'm a mechanic. So, it's completely new to me. I've had to go, start fresh and learn Lua, which hasn't been too bad. But then, like you said, on top of that, the documentation is really bad. So it's been a lot of trial and error to see what works. And so I agree. I don't think, and it's definitely raised the barrier. The barrier to entry has been raised as well. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. But I will say it does open up a lot of features that weren't previously possible, which is a good thing. So, it's give and take, I suppose.
I think eventually it will get there and it'll be fine. Like, it just is no longer something that you can point new users towards and say, hey, you're going to be able to understand this right out of the box. If it really ever was, because once you add a bar into it, especially when WayBar was like the popular bar, having to like, oh, well, you have to learn SCSS and JSON in order to actually configure this thing, and people got lost anyways.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Anyways, Dane, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll start with the Hyperland. I personally don't have an issue with Lua, but it is very typical of Vactory really moving too fast for his own good. Like moving to Lua, and then all of a sudden just and the documentation isn't there, getting people on board on there. As far as getting new users, while things like Noctalia Shell is there, I think new users can still work with it well. Like, my daughter is 13 and she's using Neri thanks to Noctalia Shell. She's thriving on it. So yeah, once you don't have to use all things like WayBar, but things are a lot simpler. And there's things like mod tools like Neri mod and all that. As far as the things I've been working on, I was actually inspired by Matt and Drew about about the Wheel of Doom, because I've been wanting to try a different distro, or a distro I hadn't touched in 20 years, like Slackware. So I spun a wheel and actually ended up on NixOS. And now that I'm using Nix, my project has been making it easy to swap things out, to make it easy to try new things, like the Celestia, Polkit agent, and try new window managers I've never tried before, like River, and also setting up a theming engine where I can just, in my main NixOS config, swap the theme out, and I've got an array there. So if I want to switch from Grubbox to Nord, it's just changing one line. So that's what I've been working on this past month, and I get Nix now. I get it.
Yeah, once you get into Nix, I think, it's hard to get away from it. It's a new way of doing things, and you lose your old ways of doing it. So yeah, Drew, go ahead.
I just wanted to let people know, and you especially, Matt. I know what happened and why everybody got kicked off now.
Oh yeah.
It actually, the server ran an unattended security update and then restarted Jitsi because of it. So there are no more unattended upgrades on that server. Just so
what a very weird time to have that cron job happen to go off. Weird, right? I mean, what are the chances of it happening?
I don't know.
That's very weird. At least it came right back up. It could have shut the whole server down.
It just restart. It just restarted Jitsi. Like that's it.
Sorry. No,
sorry everybody.
Hey, it could have just never came back. We had that happen before. All right, D-Dubs, go ahead.
Yeah, just to follow up, I put it in the chat as well. Hyperland has updated its wiki more than a month ago with all the Lua stuff, including some start here, how to, and links to the legacy stuff. So if you're on, the prior spec, you can get to that as well. So no, they've been on top of that since before technically day one, where it's mandatory. The other thing I'll say is you're 100% correct that Lua makes it harder for new users. But what you're starting to see is a lot of the things you would have to do are being done by Whaley or being done by Noctalia Shell or being done by DMS. And now there's another one that's out called Hypermod, which supports both Hyperlang and Lua. So it gives you a GUI front end to do a vast majority of the settings. Much like, I mean, if you go way back to the early days of X and GNOME and all of those, there was a lot of stuff you had to hack at the CLI before there was a nice GUI. Eventually, there will be a GUI. In fact, a lot of what Vaxery has set up are the pieces so that you can plug into that and send the right messages to make it go do things. You don't have to necessarily just script a hyperCTL or do anything like that. You literally have an API. So it's getting there slowly. I mean, today you have dbus. Everybody's using, dbus to send messages and so forth. This is kind of like that.
I always find it entertaining that the entire developer community is quickly and very happily moving on to recreate Yast. a GUI for everything. I don't know. Apparently, only OpenSUSE nerds get that.
I mean, Yast did everything. Yeah, this is specifically. I mean, you could say the same thing about KDE with its settings or Cosmic. So there's no difference. They're not trying to recreate Yast.
No, I didn't mean on purpose. I just mean it was supposed to be a joke.
Well, I mean, the practicality is it's moving away from strictly nerds. You're not going to put your grandma, your mom, or your sister necessarily, depending on Linux, without some kind of plan.
I can just imagine putting my mom on Hyperland. Sorry.
No, that's okay. My mom would have liked, I think, some more like KDE.
My mom went with Cinnamon for a little while, and she liked it just fine, and then she didn't. So it didn't last very long. GNU to Linux, go ahead.
Yeah, Linux wins. My back and my knees were not happy about this, but I finally bought some new Ethernet cables and wired up all the computers here in my office, which I hadn't done since I moved a year and a half ago. And boy, yeah, it's nice to have done it. It was a pain to get down and fish those wires behind all the spaghetti wires I had under there already, but at least they're all black because I had these ugly, old 30-year-old different color ones that I did not want to use. So I'm going to consider that a win because it's done and now everything's wired up. And in addition to that, I had this other thing hanging over my head. I have a computer that's from 2011, a i7 950 with a what is it? A large, a very a large, GeForce GTX 580, a very large graphics card. That at one time, this was my top of the line that I paid, a custom built computer that I paid a lot of money for to do HD video editing back in 2011. And I still have it. It's a large oversized tower, and it was giving me a major problem. It would, when I booted it up, it started beeping like a truck backing up. And for a year, I was living with this. Sometimes it would boot up, usually not. And I kind of just ignored it. And then it dawned on me that I wonder if one or more of the RAM chips went bad. I wasn't sure. Is that a thing that happens? Well, apparently it is. So I had to remove, of the 4 RAM chips, I had to remove 2 at a time and mix and match them till I found the 2 that worked, isolate which one was bad. And yes, that was it. I had one bad 15-year-old RAM chip, and it was only $14 on eBay to get a pair to replace it. And so I have now breathed new life into my 15-year-old machine. I'm quite happy about that.
So your solution to the memory crisis is to just buy 15-year-old memory. if that's where you need, I actually have a whole drawer full of like memory and stuff like that that's from like that age ago. I've thought about putting it online, see if I could get any money out of it. No, but it's probably too old. What do you use that old computer for? You might have said it and I missed.
I didn't say it. At one time, years ago, it was my Adobe Premiere Pro high-end video editing machine. I spared no expense having an acquaintance of mine build it. For the last couple years since I switched to Linux, it didn't really have a purpose, mostly because it wasn't really usable. But what I decided to do with it now that it's working perfectly again was I made that my Ghost BSD machine, because the other computer that I used to use Ghost BSD on, the upgrade basically made it unusable because ZFS, I had no idea that it would make a snapshot and fill up the whole hard drive, which made my computer useless at that point because I had no free space. And also the new version of Ghost BSD that I've been using quite a bit requires 8 gigabytes of RAM. So the little Celeron I was using for that is no go. But this computer is perfect because it has 16 gigs of RAM and it has a very big, much bigger hard drive. So yeah, now I have a purpose.
Nice. My next task when it comes to hardware is going to be redoing my home lab setup again. Because right now I'm using the, I have 3 or 4, like, what are these things? They're Think Centers. These little, like, I don't know, 6x2 mini PCs. And they work fine, but I've been noticing some of the things that I've been creating I've been creating a whole bunch of my own Docker stuff. And I've been noticing that I've been running out of memory. All of them have only 8 gigabytes of RAM. And I'm just not interested in upgrading them. So I have this HP Victus, something like that. Has a NVIDIA card in it, and I think it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. I'm hoping for 32. I've never opened it up because it's one of those stupid PCs that actually is like it has like a hex wrench you have to in order to get into it. So I don't even know what's in it yet. I'm going to be moving all of my home lab stuff over to that. Either that, or I'm just going to pull the old HP workstation that I was originally using for my home lab and bring that back in here and do that, because I had 128 gigabytes of RAM, and I'll never run out of RAM if I have that much. So that's my next big hardware thing to do. It's just gonna be a matter of actually doing it, and I'm dreading doing it because like most things right now are working very well on those PCs, and I know just from experience moving over to something new is going to cause issues. So it'll be like a week project probably in order to actually get everything over there and make sure things are working. It will mean that I will be able to completely remove NixOS because I'm just going to do it with the file server too. So I won't even be using the file server anymore. I'll just use one computer to rule them all. We'll see how that goes. I will say that I've been self-hosting more stuff as time goes on, and I'm gonna need, like, one of these days, I'm just gonna say screw it and get myself a server rack and get an actual server. I don't I don't know where I'd put it right now, and every time I see someone do that, the minute they turn it on, it sounds like an aircraft, landing at the airport. I'm not excited about the sound that will cause, which means that I'd have to find somewhere else in the house to put it, and I'm not one of those lucky people who have Ethernet like curled through walls and stuff like that. So I'd probably it'd probably be like using staples to put Ethernet along the like ceiling or whatever to get the Ethernet cable wherever it needs to go, because I'm not fishing cables through anywhere. So that just spells disaster for everything. But it's coming one of these days. Unfortunately, it's like a really, really, really bad time to buy any hardware. Like, even used hardware is obnoxiously expensive now. So that's going to be bad. All right. So anybody have any other Linux wins that they'd like to share, or big Linux failures that they'd like to share? Greg, go ahead. Good.
Yeah, thanks. I guess Linux related win is that I kind of put it out there a while back locally in my hometown to try to get a in-person LUG going. And we've had a couple of meetings in a row now at our local public library's makerspace. And we had more people last time than we had the first time. And there's our mailing list is growing. And there's actually, I knew if we kind of put it out there and gave it some time that people would come out of the woodwork, and they have. And it's exciting and it's fun this is obviously great. And the online community was very good to find when I got back into Linux, but it's just nice to find people locally who are using it and who come together to support. And our next meeting, we're going to talk about containerization, which should be fun. But yeah, it's all sorts, a lot of graybeards, so to speak, but also new people and younger people, and it's just a good time. So I'm counting that as a Linux win.
Nice. I looked for a local LUG near me, but I just don't. I live in the middle. I mean, Nate's gonna laugh at me if he was here that I say that I live in the middle of nowhere. But at least for Michigan, I live in the middle of nowhere. So like my biggest city near me is Grand Rapids, but that's still like an hour and a half away. So it was just too far. I thought about, like, maybe I'll put something out there for like my local like 3,000 population area. I would probably be devastated if I showed up to the library and I was like the only person there. So not quite, brave enough to try putting one together on my own. So I'll just deal with my virtual friends, and I'll just have it from the comfort of my own home. So, but I really do like the idea of actually meeting people in person. Maybe one day. I don't know if anybody is like super interested in it, but maybe one day we'll do like a Linux Cast meetup or something somewhere. Obviously, it will not be in my like little podunk town. I'll have to move it somewhere, more centrally located. But we'll see. I've been thinking about that for a little while. Anyways, GNU to Linux. Go ahead.
Yes, I would love to see Matt out of the house. We'll go to a concert first, go to dinner.
One thing at a time, man. one thing at a time. You got to get me out the door first, okay?
Okay. A Linux win. I want to credit one great thing about being a Linux Mint user is the Linux Mint forum is so helpful. If you have questions, problems, technical issues you're trying to fix, they almost always can help you. I found it to be an incredible resource. It's one of the best things about the many good things about Linux Mint. But I had one specific problem that was vexing me. I wish I understood like how grub and the whole boot process works better, because at some point about a year ago, I ran out of space on the small 120 gig hard drive I use on my primary laptop that I'm sitting in front of right now. And I had to just buy a new laptop, for my own data, and just start fresh, do a fresh install on a bigger hard drive. And the problem with that was that the boot process was still handcuffed to the old, smaller hard drive. So I could never get rid of it. Otherwise, my computer wouldn't boot, right? Because I have MIT 21.3 on this, near 99% full hard drive. And then I've got MIT 22.3, the new version, on this much bigger hard drive. And I couldn't just wipe the small hard drive because then, I wouldn't be able to boot at all. And I didn't quite understand how to fix that without, getting some help or looking up some resources. And I posted that question. I didn't articulate it quite correctly, but among the many answers I got, at least one of them was the most cogent and sensible. And I was able to follow that gentleman's instructions and effectively put Grub on the bigger, newer hard drive, separate it so I was no longer handcuffed to the old version on the smaller hard drive, and I could then wipe that. So I'm going to call that a big win because I did that without screwing up my boot process or anything else. I was very happy about that.
Yeah, Grub is one of those things where you touch it, sometimes it breaks, and by sometimes I mean most of the time. So good job there, because I know like half the time when I have to mess around with the bootloader, like I'm a little worried. It's kind of like crossing a railroad track. Like, am I gonna get hit by the train? Probably. Drew, go ahead.
I seem to recall a couple people in this LUG that have mentioned the Wheel of Doom challenge that we did. My win is absolutely not imploding and throwing my PC out into the cold, into the storm when I had to use GNOME and a bunch of other things that I genuinely hate. I do have a question if we get to it at some point, Matt. You're in a house fire and you have to save one desktop environment and you let one burn. Which is the one you save and which is the one you let burn?
Well, I mean, XFC is obviously the one that you save.
That's obvious.
All the rest of them can burn. that's definitely the answer to that question. And anybody else can just I'm using Plasma right now. Plasma has been, I mean, I every time I say this, I knock on my desk. It has been very stable this time. Now, I'm not on 6.7 yet because it hasn't come to NixOS stable branch yet. And I'm glad that it's not going to for a little while, hopefully. So I've been happy. I don't know about happily using it, but I've been using it. I've been thinking about going back to WinMagic, but I've been having so many problems with every one that I use. Maybe I'm just gonna go back to i3. We'll see. I don't know. If XFC had its Wayland session like ready right now, that's where I'd go. Like I would run there. Because it's the one that I want to use, but unfortunately X11 has not been very. I know D-Dubs, you mentioned in the chat on the podcast the other day, skill issue, maybe I don't know. I've been having problems. Anyways, Chris, go ahead. You gotta unmute yourself, bud.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned something about servers. So if you look back here, right there, see my finger?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are you talking about a one-use server you want to get? Because that's a super micro secondhand just put together with a server, and the CPU commands are really loud as hell. But there's a tool called IMP tool that and you send it some hex code and it'll dial down those fans, whether it's the case fan or the CPU fans, and it can actually run. Mine's actually running, you can't even hear it. And I run Proxmox on that.
Does it cause the heat in that room to?
Not really, no. And I'm in Texas and it's hot as shit.
Oh, well, I'm surprised you're not on fire. I mean,
hell, look at my face.
Like I think we looked at it was like 110 degrees somewhere down there.
Oh, fuck, it was hot.
Yeah,
it's been hot. Hell, I've been working. My son got in a wreck in his Dodge Ram 250, and I'm doing some body work right now. But anyways,
You southern people are brave souls. All
Yeah,
right.
I was out there in the heat of the day because I got to take a bed off, and I was taking 6 big ass 10mm bolts off the bottom with my pneumatic ratchet, and I was dripping.
I bet. All right.
Anyways, that secondhand super micro motherboard, two Xeon processors, 14 cores each, no 12 cores each, something like that, and then I got 256 megs of ECC RAM. That's my Proxmox server. So that DDubs guy, so I talked to him about Proxmox, so that's what I run. Really everything, and my daily drivers of Mac Mini. So you can buy pretty cheap stuff, and you can run it in your house. But if you just dial down the case fans down to 800 degrees, and the CPU fans about 18,000. I'm sorry, 1800. It'll be virtually quiet. So
Yeah.
that's all I have to say.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'll give it a try, or at least I'll.
But I'm not sure if
take
you
a
want to
look
use
at it.
a 1U or a 2U on a rack, but
I don't know. I haven't done much look into it because I've been very hesitant towards actually putting any resources into it because I'm not sure. So my office is also my bedroom, because there's nowhere else in the room a house that I have like place to put the office space. So it'd have to be in here because, like I said, I don't have Ethernet anywhere else. So
the big rub would be NVM2 RAM or NVM2 SSDs for any kind of storage, anything fast. That's the big rub. Other stuff could be very affordable.
Yeah. All right, Dane, go ahead.
I'll stop.
Yeah, so on the NVMe stuff, like even found out this morning that Xbox are going to discontinue their 2 terabyte version just because those drives are just too expensive now. That's just how bad it is, where even Xbox is not even going to provide a 2 terabyte NVMe anymore. That's how bad it is. But also circling back, I wanted to talk about which desktops to save and stuff. The one I've got my eye on more is Budgie, because they're doing something very, very interesting, where they're aiming their desktop environment to be really compositor agnostic. So the current version is running on top of LabWC. They're building their own compositor based on Mir, but the plan is they want to make their desktop environment work on any WL roots or Mir-based compositor, and then eventually run on anything. So eventually you could run it on something like Mango, which is actually very interesting to me.
I don't like to badmouth open source developers, but I don't trust the developers behind Budgie. I just don't. They've waffled too much. So I started using Linux full time again in 2017. Somewhere around that point, they were promising Budgie 11. Budgie 11's still not out, and that was 10 years ago. And they were just like they were going to switch to Qt. They didn't do that. They were going to move to the Enlightenment. I think it was the Enlightenment stuff, the ETL libraries or whatever.
I love Enlightenment.
Right? They didn't do that. Now that they're doing something else, I don't trust that they know what they're doing or know what they want to do. Maybe that's the better way to put it. Like, I just don't know that they. It's like a club full of Vaxeries there that just can't make up their mind one way or the other on what they actually want to do. The only problem is that Vaxery actually delivers the stuff that he wants to do. He just will then just do something else later on. Where the Budgie guys, they never deliver anything.
I didn't think about that actually.
Maybe they like. I haven't used Budgie in a while, so maybe they're better off now that they've divorced themselves from Solus and gotten away from all that stuff. I don't know, but just historically being, I have a hard time trusting that they're going to deliver something that I'm actually going to be able to use long term and be happy about it. And when it comes to desktop environments, I need to have some trust in the crew. Like, I say a lot of shit about KDE. I mean, a lot of it. I mean, it is buggy. I have problems with the theming engine, the old one. I haven't really tried the new one yet. I know.
I used it for 25 years.
Yeah, right. But you can still trust the KDE guys. Like, eventually they'll probably fix whatever the problem is. They'll introduce new problems, but you can at least go to them and say, hey, this is a problem. Maybe it'll get fixed. I don't have that same kind of trust with the budgie folks. So,
Yeah, fair.
I also here's something we can talk about. Do we think that there's just too many desktop environments out there? Because we were talking about this I think they were talking about this on the LUG or on the podcast, a while back, and it was just like maybe it was actually in a comment section on one of my videos where I was talking. Made the comment about like distros matter. Yeah, it was the distros matter video. Sorry, and somebody in the comment section was like, well, it's the nature of open source, but also it's the really bad thing and all this stuff. And they were going back and forth, and they couldn't really make up their mind. And you could tell that they were a new user because they were a new-ish user. Like, they've been here for a while, so they know what the experience is, but they haven't landed on anything yet. And they were very much of the opinion that the desktop environments themselves are more the problem than the distros are, simply because of the nature of how, like, you can put two gnomes together and they can function basically completely differently, right? Like if you look at Ubuntu and Fedora, they both use vanilla GNOME, but they look and feel and function really differently out of the box. Now, they have obviously similarities because it is still a GNOME underneath. So it's like they have a hard time separating those two. I will say that just to toot Cinnamon's horn, Cinnamon usually looks the same no matter what distro you're using it on, so maybe that's a win. GNU2 Linux, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's too many. For one, there's only a few that are really popular, and then there's a bunch of much more obscure ones. And many people will simply use whatever one comes standard, if there is a standard one, on whatever distro they're using, if they're using one of the distros that come with a desktop environment. And if you're not one of those people, if you're a kind of person who's building everything from scratch, well, you know what you're doing, and you're going to pick whatever you want and do it the hard way and customize it all yourself. So I don't think there's any such thing as too many. There's several, and people will have their preference, and many people will just leave it alone so it looks almost stock the way it comes, and only much smaller percentage of people are going to tinker with it and tweak it and change it and put themes and make it look different than other people. So it's fine. Just use whatever comes with, or change it if you care.
Yeah, I think that the commenter that I was talking about was talking about the different variations of the big ones, right? But really, honestly, I think I responded to him, with this, was that Plasma pretty much looks the same no matter what distro you're on. Cinnamon is kind of the same. It's GNOME, because of the nature of GNOME, that causes a lot of the issues, because it does look different on a lot of different distros. I was also talking to George Castro the other day on the distro thing, and he's very anti-distro because of his nature. And I find it interesting how some people are the camp of, are there too many distros, are there not enough distros, or is very much split down the middle. Some people are like, there's way too much choice here, and we'd be much better off if Linux was proprietary and only had one choice. And then there's like a lot of most other people are like, it's just kind of the nature of open source. That's the reason why we have so many things. Like, if you don't like anything, if you don't like Ubuntu, you can go create Linux Mint. You know what I mean? Or you don't like Debian, you can go create Ubuntu. It's an interesting thing, and the reason why I made that video to begin with was just because you do get the sense with all these influencers that are switching to Linux, or making videos about switching to Linux. One of the universal things that happens in all those videos is like, well, what distro do you choose? And it almost every single one of them, if they didn't use an LLM to answer the question, they would go to Google and they'd search for best Linux distro. And I mean, I think that's probably my one big pet peeve about Linux, like the community itself, is like we do tend to create these articles and videos about the best Linux distro, and it just doesn't exist. So, I don't know. I've been rambling on for a while now. So D-Dubs, go ahead, save me.
Yeah, my answer to that, and if I was talking to Jorge, I would say, you're right. There are too many distros. Let's get rid of these immutable. I don't like these immutable. You know what I'm saying? So anybody who says there are too many of anything, I say, okay, what happens when what you wanted gets chopped? And even if you did, even if you could somehow get rid of these other distros or whatever, somebody's just going to fork it. There's going to be some little project. That's how we sort of got here in the first place. The best that work the best for the most people are going to be the ones that get chosen, the ones that rise to the top. That's why the GNOME and the KDE are so solidly entrenched. They've been around the longest. They're very, very solid overall. They're not too difficult to use. They have the features you kind of expect out of the box. You know, how do I change the theme? How do I change, you know, oh, look, it found my printer, or, you know, whatever the case may be. It's fairly complete. Hyperland is the complete opposite of that, because it's not designed to be. You build it. Here's the framework, you build it. Cosmic is going to be one of those, here you go, ready to go. You were talking about Cinnamon. Cinnamon is another good basic starter choice. But that's the thing, is choice. If you don't like immutable, don't use it. If you don't like the GNOME, don't use it. There are plenty of options, but nowhere am I going to support anybody who says we should restrict it or there are too many. No, they're not. There really aren't. Not too many distros, not too many GUIs. Because you look at all the other, you look at some. I mean, look at Slackware. Slackware is still kicking. You know, Debian is still kicking. They're solid.
If you want to call that kicking, it's more just standing still. I mean, it's,
but again, that's
I know. I was
reason, those who use Slackware seem to appreciate that. I'm like, okay, vaya con Dios. You know, if that's what you want, then go for it. But there are so many abandoned projects based on Arch and based on Debian and based on all these other ones that have just died. Nobody's using them anymore. But you have other ones like Blue Star out of Brazil, you know, that's focused on, you know, Portuguese and Spanish and Latin America. And it's a way off the top, way over the top GUI. I mean, it's like, I think there was somebody who challenged them to how many icons can they put on the desktop out of the box. You know, but people like it. You know, people like GNOME. I really don't care for it.
Drew's the fanboy for GNOME.
Yeah. By the way, he's going to put on a NixOS hat in a second.
Yeah. If Drew ever comes on the podcast and says he switched to NixOS, we'll know that something's happened. Horrible has happened.
He's had a stroke.
Yeah, something's gone bad there.
Something's really, really gone bad.
Yeah,
we were going to pay him a lot of money.
So, that'd probably be it. Although I don't know how much money that would need to be happening. All right, Greg.
Well, it depends on how long. It's not like it's a tattoo, you know. I mean, he can be bought. He's not cheap, but he can be bought.
All right, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's too many. Maybe there's too many broken ones, but don't use those. I like the choice. I'd be sad if we had less choices. I do think, though, I agree with you. If I'm remembering right, the point you made on your distro matters is, I think this was you, that maybe as like a community, we kind of need to settle on like, what are we going to point new people to? Maybe that's Ubuntu. Maybe it should be Mint. I don't know. Ubuntu is probably honestly not a bad choice because, well, just because it's not. But yeah, I think there's that where it's like, what are we going to agree is like the gateway drug to Linux, and would be something to think about. But once you're in, I think you can stay sort of comfortably in that. Well, this is just my open source version of my Windows machine that I just I'm a just works user. I don't need to do anything else, and I never need to touch it. But if you want to be a tinkerer and a chooser, and you want to make KDE almost look like GNOME, or GNOME almost look like KDE, you can go do all that stuff. And I'm glad we have all that choice. And also, I don't like immutable distros.
Oh, one day we will talk about the immutable things. Maybe we can get George to be on here, but he could set us all straight why that we can't use the word immutable and what we're not gonna get into that. Drew, go ahead.
So I agree also that we're not maxed out on choices, but there is a drawback because I think attention is the scarce resource. So every every desktop environment needs people to maintain it, like qualified people, and they have to fix bugs and support Wayland handle. So there is a scarcity with that. So with as thin as everything is in terms of like contribution to these desktop environments, either things get very buggy or they move at a snail's pace. So if we had fewer, then we'd have more qualified developers, like with their attention on the more popular ones, let's say, and the re-implementation of the GNOME 2 cluster with the Mate and the Cinnamon and the Budgie. You could make an argument that not all of them needed to be made. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, would I be sad if any of them would go? Not really, because I think that there would be stronger contribution in other areas. That's really all I was saying.
Right. I think I agree with you. I think stuff like Mate, I think eventually the market corrects itself. So one of the reasons why Mate was created was because the old beards who liked GNOME 2 wanted to keep using it, right? Eventually those people either die off or move on. Usually they move on to not be so dark about it, right? They move on to something different. They finally let go of their attachment to that paradigm of using their desktop. Like that's the reason why what's his name, Martin Wimpress, has moved on from the project. He's moved on from Mate. He does other things now. Now I think that project will continue because there still are people who enjoy that workflow, but I think it's now I'm like a marginalized thing. What gets me about, just completely off topic there just for a second, what confuses me that most, and I understand the reason why, it's not really like a confusion, but what's weird is that Cinnamon offers Mate but doesn't offer KDE Plasma, and KDE Plasma is much bigger and much more popular, and I know they used to have one and it just was too hard to maintain because of all the packages and shit, but I think that would be something that I think that using Plasma on Mate, like officially, or excuse me, Plasma on Mint officially would be really cool. I just, it was completely just thrown out there. So, Mitch, go ahead. You gotta unmute yourself, bud.
Can you hear me?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. Now, I was just going to talk about the whole what somebody should start in Linux, kind of thing. And I think, I have a similar thing that happens. I ride motorcycles and like off-road, like dual sports and and adventure bikes. And the same thing happens in that community, if you will, whereas somebody buys a bike or is going to look for a bike, and it's always the same thing. What's the best one to get? And then everybody has their own opinion, their own history, their own experiences, where they're at in their motorcycle journey or whatever. And so they give the opinion, and all The only thing they're giving is what their experiences are and what they think that they should be. And the fundamental thing that is always lost in that, whether it's, with Linux or riding bikes or whatever, is you can't answer that question without getting those other questions answered. So it's like, what if somebody just comes up and says, hey, I want to start using Linux, what's the best distribution to use? The answer is, what's your experience in computers? Have you ever used Linux before? What do you want to do? Where do you want to be, in the future? Are you a quick learner? Do you have any, it's like, you cannot answer a question just from somebody who's asking just based on what your opinions are. So as far as how many distributions, how many selections, that's kind of the same thing too. There's 9 million different bikes and stuff that you could pick from. It's the same concept, and that's not just that's almost in any kind of thing. But I think that's what always gets lost is, people want to throw their opinions out there, and it's like your opinion when you're trying to answer somebody's question is almost useless, because you have to factor in all their use cases are their experience and everything else. If you don't do that, you just says, yeah, just use Ubuntu. That's a good one for starters. It's like, but you don't know if that person's like, all they want to do is browse, or if they're a person who's been using Windows and, they're super good in the Windows terminal and they can program and everything, and you're trying to get them on Ubuntu and they could be better on. It's like, you can't answer that question. You just can't without asking a bunch of questions to get that answer. Anyway, rambling on, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, there was that, I'm not sure what the website was called, but there was actually like a distro quiz website that people could go to and actually take a quiz, and it would spit out some options for what distros they could use. It never really took off, but you're right. Everybody's different. Everybody's special snowflake, all that stuff, and what their needs are going to be different. But where I've kind of come down, like I think that we should just agree that Mint is where people need to go, or Ubuntu, whatever, one of those two, right? But we're not going to do that. So instead, what we should do is just have a distro randomizer. You pick this, you get this application, and it's like we could just use the Wheel of Doom, actually. Just spin that thing, and it spits something out. That's the one that you start on, because it really, at the end of the day, as long as we don't put something stupid on there like Gentoo or Linux from scratch, or NixOS, or any of the ones we wouldn't really point towards a new user.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and here's the reason why. It's like I'm pretty new to Linux. It's like did I use it in the past? Just little bits and pieces throughout my work career. I have to get on servers and everything, but never like full-time rig. And well, what I did was started out in Ubuntu. It was like, hey, let me see how this works, and I just let me try another one, watch YouTube videos, try this, and the best thing I did was try a whole shit ton of them. And in real quick succession, like probably within a couple of months, I tried probably 5 or 6 different ones, and kind of, so I got to see and utilize what they all had to offer. It started to understand, it's like when you tell somebody, well, you can do whatever you want with Linux, it's like, what does that mean? To somebody new, what do you mean do anything? What is anything? It's like, you don't understand what the concept of a desktop environment is, and a tiling window manager and all that, especially if it's somebody who hasn't, is coming to Linux, they're pretty much used to a floating tiling system like Windows or such. So they can't even conceive what you're talking about, so I agree. The best thing to do is just say, flip a coin, pick one in this list of 100 and try one, and then try another one, try at least 5, before, just work your way around. I think that's a great idea. Just like spin the wheel.
Yeah. Randomizer wheel. We just won't call it the Wheel of Doom. All right, Dane, go ahead.
Yeah, with what Mitch was saying, yes, distro hopping is very important when you first started out. I did it from Turbo Linux to Red Hat to Mandrake, which I stuck with for many years. Drew, sorry, but the reason why I didn't do Debian was Debian 3.0 came out, was it 2002? And when they brought that out, it still used the 2.2 kernel, which means it didn't have USB support. So the accusation that Debian was old itself is a very, very, very old meme, like dating back to even 2002. But initially I put my hand up about all the desktops that are, and are there too many? The question is, how many of those desktops were designed in a reaction to GNOME? Because we know Mate was, Cinnamon sort of, Unity definitely was, the current Rust Cosmic definitely is. How, yeah, a lot of these distros were split off from GNOME, most of them with the 3.0 release. So what does that really say about having so many as a reaction, a backlash to the biggest one?
I think the point you're trying to make is that GNOME sucks, and a lot of people think so.
Oh yeah, but a lot of these, it's not just GNOME, but their attitude are like a one true way, and it just got to the point where people just left. I mean, you look at the Qt space, like there's not many forks of KDE. I think there's Trinity. LXQt is just LXDE moved to Qt.
Okay, yeah, I agree with you partially, but I think one of the reasons why there's not a big fork of KDE, think of all the stuff you'd have to fork if you wanted to fork KDE. I mean, just think about it for, like, if you've ever downloaded, say, Kdenlive or Kate, or anything like that. When you download those things, you get like miles longs of dependencies. If you wanted to fork one of those things, you'd have to fork every single one of those dependencies in order, or you'd have to match them the upstream version for version on all those dependencies if you weren't going to fork them, and that would be a pain in the ass. Now, I'm not saying that GNOME has no dependencies, but in comparison to what KDE has, it's a big deal. And also, I mean, there's the whole Qt licensing bullshit that goes on every couple of years. So a lot of people don't want to deal with that. So I think that's one of the reasons why. But it is interesting to think, like, you know what, you're right. The reason why there's so many desktop environments is because so many people disagreed with the direction GNOME went. Because I mean, yes, there
are not just that. It's 3.0 itself. Even GNOME fanboys admit 3.0 was garbage and it just wasn't usable.
Well, and people, because it changed paradigms into how the actual desktop environment worked, right? It went from being a panel-based workflow to a dock-based workflow that was not only that, but a hidden dock-based workflow, and they wanted you to move from using your mouse the majority of the time to using a keyboard workflow a lot of time. Because I know a lot of people actually know this that don't use GNOME, but GNOME is primary, at least from, I mean, this is from one of the developers, so I'm not sure if this is actually true anymore, but it used to be anyways. When they first came out with 3, their idea was to have this be a primarily keyboard-driven workflow. And that's crazy. That was crazy talk for a lot of people back then, and still to this day. I mean, when you want to use a desktop environment, you think it's more of a mouse-driven use workflow. D-Dubs, go ahead.
I agree with you, Drew. I think we need to definitely, pare down the projects. So let's start with Suckless, BSPWM, Awesome WM. Take all those devs and push them all towards Wayland and get rid of all the X guys, and that'd be great. So that's the problem. Plus, these are passion projects. Not that many percentage-wise are getting paid. I mean, all the work you do, for example, I mean, you're not getting paid, not really. You choose Debian because that's what you want. If I said to you, sorry, Debian didn't make the cut, you got to go to Arch for the better of everybody else. You got to do all your work on Arch. You'd be like, I don't think so. I'll just fork the last Debian and I'll just keep going myself. That's the whole thing is And that's why like there's these almost religious wars over GUIs and distros because people get very attached to it. It works for them and that's what they want. It's for some, it's going to be, you're going to have to pry DWM from my cold dead fingers. I mean, but you are also talking about, and where I really truly agree with you, is on the standard side. You experienced it, I've experienced it with like WL roots. WL roots should be a solid piece of code. It should be an absolute no-brainer. You should be able to use that thing. It should have good compatibility. I shouldn't have to say, oh, I have to use 1.9.2 patch 3 with SwayFX because I can't use 1.9.4, but I have to use 1.9.4 with DWL. But Mango needs 1.9.5 patch 12. It's a nightmare and it shouldn't be. And that's the bigger issue with Linux is there are definitely standards, dbus. Free desktops tried to have all these standards. WL root should be a standard. Why is X11 as good as it is? Because it is such a solid standard. It has been hammered for 40 years and it ain't perfect, but it works. And Wayland is way, way far from, Vaxry had to redo it, his own. He was so frustrated with WL roots, he did his own, and it's rock solid. But anyway, that's all. It's unfortunately it's who's going to bell the cat, who's going to be the one to sacrifice their project so that those developers can go somewhere else. And the question is, would they even go anywhere else? I don't think so.
Interesting. Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, I think when we talk about distros and recommending and stuff like that, we have to remember that there are people like us, right, who are on this call and who care about how computers work, who sometimes maybe spend more time creating their tool than using the tool to create other things.
I have no idea what you're talking about. That has never happened.
And people, and honestly, it's like I'll be talking to people at work about computers or like some, and it dawns on me, I'm like, that's right. There's people who just see the computer like a blender, right? It does something for them and that's it. And I don't mean the software. I mean like the thing that makes drinks, right? It's another appliance they use to do certain things. And then when they're done, they're done. Work gives them a janky little keyboard and they type on it because that's the one work gives them. And it wouldn't occur to them in a million years to bring their own Mo Ergo Glove 80 keyboard to the office like I do. So there's like people like us, as it were, right, are going to come to Linux and be like, yeah, distro hop, I'm going to try a bunch of different things. But if you talk to quote normies or muggles or whatever, right, and I don't mean that disparagingly, I mean there's plenty of people who don't care, right? They're not going to be like, hey, I want to try 10 different operating systems. They're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Just give me a computer that works. So and I want to see open source in Linux be a world where like all those people can hang out and do stuff. So it's like meet people where they are, let them have Mint, which is great, right? Or give them Mint. And then if they start to get that bug, right, if they start to realize there's more they can do, then it's like, then we can spring on them all the other stuff and be like, here, hop through all these distros and eventually you're going to wind up compiling your kernel or whatever. But we don't want to scare the straights, right? Like right away, like be cool when they first come in, I guess is all I'm saying. And remember that not everybody is as dorky as all of us. And I mean that in the nicest possible way.
Putting this to a vote. In fact, I'm going to ignore the democracy and I'm going to make a ruling here. We are from now on calling all new Linux users muggles. Okay, that's just we're just doing that from now on. All right, Chris, go ahead. You gotta unmute yourself, bud.
To what Greg said, just hand these certain groups of people, or there's a certain group of people a Chromebook and call it a day.
Well, I mean, we've had attempts in the past to make a Linux version of a Chromebook, right? Like, at least for the operating system part, not so much the hardware, and it's never really taken off. Simply because I think that it's a chicken and egg problem. It has to exist for people to use it. Yet, in order for people to develop it, there has to be an audience for it, and those things one has to exist before it can actually become good. It's one of the reasons why Linux Mobile hasn't really taken off. Yeah, you don't have the push forward monetarily for it to happen because there has to be some kind of money behind it, and
I was thinking more let them use Chrome OS, and if they want to get their feet wet, then they can move forward to something else.
So your solution is to send them to Google?
No, just recommend. Hey, use a Chrome. No, Greg. No. All right.
No, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be dismissive. I feel like, you could like a full operating. I think Mint is perfect for something like that. It's like, it lets them store files and do all that stuff.
Wouldn't Chrome OS be a nice bridge over?
It is a bridge. I think so. Yeah.
I'm just kind of throwing it out, spitballing here.
Yeah. I mean, at least it's Linux-y. It's not Windows and it is very Google, but it's not Linux and it's not Mac. So
you got to go through hoops to get the terminal, and I don't think some people just don't want to spend the time to do that. But that's kind of like, there's people who drive a car, they put gas in, they go somewhere. Do they modify their engine? There's like a small block. Do they put a bigger carb on it, or do they get a little ambitious and put a aluminum intake port, do a match port on it? Maybe they want to take the heads off and do a match port on that. Jay-Z would know what that meant, but
and that's good because I have no clue what you're talking.
Well, Jay-Z
car stuff, man.
Jacob would know.
Car stuff.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'd have to leave the house to know what those are,
I'll
right?
shut up. I can talk about that shit all day.
I'm going to push back a little bit on the Chrome OS thing, just simply because I feel like it's a bridge to Linux the same way WSL is a bridge to Linux. Only I think WSL is actually more of a bridge to Linux than Chrome OS is, because WSL is actually Linux, where Chrome OS has done everything in its power to not feel like Linux. For the most part, yeah, you can use a lot of Linux apps on there, but you have to kind of work for it actually to get that way. Technically, it's Gentoo underneath. So, I mean, if for those people who are Gentoo users, all roads lead to Gentoo. It's actually someone in the chat said that the Chrome OS is as much Linux as Android is. Technically, yes, it is Linux, but it's not. It doesn't feel like if you use it, you're like, you know what, I could do more if I go and install Linux Mint. There's no prodding there. Chrome OS seems more like a destination for a lot of people, mostly because that's where they start out with. Like you hand your kid in high school or middle school or whatever one of these $250 Chromebooks, and that's just where they land now. You know what I mean? It's not like there's no progression there to something more difficult for the vast majority, and that's just where they stay. It's like handing them a Windows box. That's the reason why so many kids know what Windows and use Windows, because that's what they used in school. Mac OS for a long time, that was the deal. Like, you used Macintosh in school, so you probably bought a Macintosh once you got out of college and could afford one. Or if it was anything like me, they literally threw those white clamshell MacBooks at you from the computer store. There was like a kid out there just tossing them out there like it was the newspaper extra. So I have a hard time with Chrome OS being considered a bridge. Maybe for some people, I don't think that it's for a lot of people. D-Dubs, go ahead.
I agree. I believe you're 100% correct. I don't see Chrome OS or Android being, a gateway. Partially because they have a very different market. They have to be appliances. They have to be blenders, effectively. People don't want to mess with their phone and have to deal with updates or any of the other stuff. It has to not only work, it has to be fully vetted and qualified. You don't just say, oh, well, I threw this patch. I mean, I know you've run into it, Matt, with NixOS. Somebody boofs upstream and you can't do a rebuild. You can't have that with your Chromebooks or your Android phones or your Android tablets or your your Chrome tablets. They've got to come on, turn on, tell you every once in a while, oh yeah, you got to do an update. reboot, and still work and be easy to get apps. So when you compare the apps on the Android and the Chrome side, as far as literally plug and play, you don't have to worry about it. Is it a Flatpak or a Snap or a native, or do I have the right version of this or have the right version of Cargo? None of that matters. It's an appliance. When you get into anything that is truly a computer, that's a different kind of market. That's a different kind of user. I think, we saw a lot of new users coming from Windows because of the Microsoft Windows 11 decision and the costs, So I think that's what you're going to find, people who are curious. Those are the people we have to help.
Yeah, I think that the idea behind a very part of the reason why Chrome OS is so attractive to a lot of people is because you can go buy a laptop for $250. You know what I mean? It's not really about the software itself. It's like you go into, like, if you, for a lot of people who aren't techie, like for a lot of muggles out there, you go to Best Buy, you need a laptop because your last one crapped the bed. You go in there and you don't want to immediately go to the Apple table where it's $1,000, it's $1,200, it's $2,500, and even some Windows laptops these days are just obnoxiously expensive. And if anybody followed the news, like, they're going to get way more now. I mean, Apple just raised all the prices today, right? But Chromebooks, you go in there, you can find, I mean, yeah, it's going to be a piece of shit, but for $200, you can get yourself a laptop. And if all you do is browse around in Chrome anyways, that thing's going to be perfectly fine. It'll probably last you a very long time. And who gives a crap if Google stops updating it? You don't care. As long as it continues to actually get on the internet and allow you to do your stuff in Chrome, who cares? So part of the reason why Chrome OS is so attractive to a lot of people is because of that price point. And Linux has eternally had a hardware problem, right? Like, we don't have, outside of a few rare examples like System 76 and Tuxedo, we don't really have a hardware company that is either interested or capable of matching the Chromebook, like, price point, like that model. Like, it'd be really cool. I mean, it'd be phenomenal if System 76 are like, you know what, once we get Cosmic, so that isn't a piece of flaming pile of, we're going to develop that into like a very there's going to be like a minimal version of Cosmic that we can throw on a laptop that's going to cost $300. You can buy it and it's going to be, whatever. Maybe we'll do some MDM stuff so companies can actually use it and pass it out to people, or schools can use it. You know what I mean? That would be cool. But at least so far, there hasn't been a company that's like interested in doing that. And in order for that type of dynamic to actually work, the hardware has to be alongside it, I think, anyways, because just the software, actually Google itself, I think it's like a Chrome OS Flex or something like that, right? It's like the downloadable version of Chrome OS you can actually put on whatever hardware you want. Nobody actually uses that thing because the software is not what's interesting about it. It's the fact that you can go get cheap hardware. There's a reason why the Chromebooks that are like $1,000, nobody buys them, because you don't need $1,000 Chromebook. All you're running is Chrome. So I don't know. It's the Chrome OS thing is always interesting to me, and it's an interesting conversation. But I think it's a hard. It always transitions like, oh, Chrome OS is really cool. But it has all these like flaws or whatever. It's the hardware that really is the story there. War Thunder, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say I do mostly kind of agree with that. My thing. So my original gateway into Linux was me just messing with things. But the first time I ever took it seriously was a Chromebook. And I say that because at the time, what I was looking for in a machine was something inexpensive I can carry from class to class. I was in college, so I was taking notes, and I needed a basic machine for that and not lug my big laptop around to do engineering stuff, because I needed all day battery life, and I could get that out of a Chromebook. I couldn't get that out of anything else. I'll also comment, I used Chromebooks as a gateway to get my wife to give up Windows, because what a lot of people, at least one of the things I was afraid of, is, oh my God, I'm going to be not on Windows. I can't use my software. I needed to get out of that mindset of I need Windows. No, you don't need Windows. You need an application to do what it is you want to do. And to kind of get that psychology out of your head And so that's one of the things I used Chromebooks for, was kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to go to school today. I'm not taking Windows with me. I'm just taking this Chromebook. And if I need anything, I'll do everything on this Chromebook. And that's how I learned to not rely on Windows and Windows software. I started looking elsewhere. And yeah, at the time, it was a lot of web apps. Web apps were still kind of janky in early days and whatnot. But that was one of the ways I got around it. Then later on, when I started installing what I would call real Linux, because Chrome OS to me is kind of like toy Linux. It was good for the time I used it. I largely outgrew its purpose. I have 2 Chromebooks here at the house. My wife still has her old Chromebook. We don't really use them anymore because, well, if I need a laptop, I'm grabbing my ThinkPad or I'm grabbing something else. I'm even grabbing this $100 from the Best Buy clearance bin Celeron laptop, because this is more than enough for me to SSH into my server and do updates to it or move files around or anything like that. I'd rather do that than use a Chromebook because I can do all kinds of things with that. It runs MX Linux. It runs it great. It's enough to take notes and everything. I don't have to worry about, Google updating it and breaking it, which I've had happened. I don't know. That's my only gripe is I used Chromebooks as like the ramp to get me up into Linux, to give me the confidence that Linux could do what I needed it to do. And I know that's not everybody.
All this talk about all this stuff has made me realize that I really want a netbook again. Not like a go on to eBay and find like an old netbook, but I like want a company to come out and say, you want what? That idea was just ahead of its time. Here's a Linux netbook that you can buy that has somewhat modern specs to it. Has a 10-inch screen, maybe a 9-inch screen. Yeah, just really small. It can be shitty hardware. I don't care. Just show $300. I'll buy it. Just something that I can open up and not have to lug around a 16-inch laptop that I had to buy that weighs 5 pounds. You know what I mean? I know the common knowledge is that I don't leave the house that much, but I do actually leave the house, Greg.
Yep.
And when I do, I don't want to carry around a 12-pound laptop. I would love just a little compact thing that runs, a TTY even. Like it'd be great.
Yeah. Can you handle like a 13-inch? Like as an example, I have a Latitude 7390 that's a 2-in-1 that has a touch screen. That is a 13-inch notebook that I don't usually use it in tent mode or anything, but it's compact enough. I take it on vacation and whatnot because it's small enough that I can take it places. I can fold it up if I want to watch YouTube, that sort of thing.
So I have an XPS, a Dell XPS. It's not a 10th one, but it's like like a really expensive laptop when it first came out. But the LCD on it is shit. It like flickers and stuff. And I looked into replacing the screen, and it's like $400. Like I don't want to pay. I just buy something different.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's basically e-waste because I can't use it. So, I would love something that's sub 10 inches. That's just like that I can just haul around. Battery lasts maybe 15 minutes, even if it is. I think it's fine, but it'd be something that would run off like an Anchor like battery pack, because it draws like 5 watts. You know what I mean? That'd be great.
So you're like me, and you kind of almost want a CyberDeck.
Yeah, exactly. Greg, build me one of those. I know you're the one building a CyberDeck, right, Greg?
Yeah, it's taking longer than I'd like, but yeah.
All right. When you're done with it and you have all the plans or whatever, hit me up. I'll pay you to build me one too.
Oh, okay.
Unless it's one of those CyberDecks that actually is actually comes in like a suitcase. That's probably too big for me. It's not as portable as I'd like. But yeah, that kind of thing, like it's just very, very portable. I don't know. Yeah. Arch, Mitch, you're next. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, kind of hinging off of what Greg was saying, people, it's like there's this like mindset. Oh, how can we get everybody on, to want to get on Linux and make their experience great? And what he said is so true. It's like the vast majority of people that you work with, that you interact with, throughout the day, they could give a shit about their computer. It's like, that's just something I use at work, and when I go home, I don't care. I don't even need a browser. I do everything on my phone, and the only reason why I would need a computer at home is probably just, oh, I got to get one for my kid for school or whatever. Uh, and so everybody that's on this call, there's probably two reasons that drew them to Linux. One is that when they were a kid and that radio broke, they were the one that got the screwdriver out and took it apart to see what was inside. And that's what draws them to Linux. And everybody probably on this call has that in them. They're curious to see what's inside and how it works. But that's a small subset of the people out there. Most people are like, radio doesn't work, don't care, get another one, I don't care how it works. I just just get another radio. But the part that they do care about is, oh, I need to get another radio, how much does it cost? And then you've got them another reason. The reason to go to Linux is because of the cost. And the reason, in my opinion, why Linux hasn't evolved in mainstream is because Microsoft has had a handhold on all of the PC manufacturers. You buy a PC, it comes with a Windows license, whether it's a Dell or whatever. It has been this way for decades and decades. And however, it's not like, hey, I want to get this one. Do you want Windows on it or do you want Linux? It's just like, yeah, it comes with Windows. It's not even an option. You know what I mean? And what you don't realize is that's another $150 on the cost. That's part of the PC. And now what's happening, I don't know if y'all are aware, but like Lenovo is actually they're starting to sell their computers with an option of Linux or Windows. Well, guess what? It's $150 cheaper. So now you're going to have people who don't give a shit about their computer, but they have some reason that they need to buy a computer for home, and work, they don't care. Whatever's provided, I'm going to use. I'm not going to be like, hey, I don't want to. But now and when they go to like, well, let me go to the store. Well, guess what? Here's this thing called a Chromebook. It's only $250. Yeah, that works. Get that. Or no, they have some reason to go a little further. Now, because Lenovo, and I think even HP is starting off it. Microsoft's pissed. I don't know if they threw a hissy fit or whatever. But now that you're going to have this option, and it's not like Windows or Linux, and it's like people in that choice that aren't take the radio apart kind of people are going to be like, this one's $150 cheaper. And that's going to be the transition as more of these PC manufacturers start not mandating Windows only.
It would be interesting to see if more manufacturers follow along. I don't have a lot of faith that that's going to happen, but we'll see. Because Lenovo and Dell have done it for years. It's not anything new. It's just so. Like Dell actually treats Linux as like a redheaded stepchild. Like they bury that thing on the website, or at least maybe they don't anymore, but they used to. Like if you wanted to find their Ubuntu-based Inspirons or whatever it is, you'd have to go digging for it. And that's an unfortunate situation when you want to actually purchase something like that. So we'll see. Arch Penguin, go ahead.
Yeah, all the talk about cyber decks and Chromebooks and all the stuff, you guys got me excited. I love that kind of stuff. The suggestion I was going to make for the netbook for you, Matt, was maybe using Mr. Chromebox's compatibility list, right, for a buyer's guide of Chromebook. And then you can flash core boot and put whatever Linux distro you want on there. It's pretty inexpensive to get these things. I've done a few of them. It's a great way to liberate it from the clutches of Google, and you get your netbook, right, for a pretty reasonable price. So just a suggestion.
Yeah, I might look into it, but where I'm probably going to end up going is just getting myself a ThinkPad. Like they have an 11-inch ThinkPad. It's not quite as small as I want it to be, but those things are they're
There you go.
you know, amazingly, you know,
I'm just thinking
fixable.
price wise,
right?
you know, it's really pretty inexpensive for a used one.
Well, I found some old, like really old, like netbooks. Like I wouldn't mind getting one of those because I don't need anything. Like I don't do anything like on the road that needs like a. I'm not gonna edit a video on anything like that. I'm gonna
Right.
spend most of my time on a terminal or Emacs. As if it runs Emacs, I'm gonna be happy. And anything will
Yeah,
run Emacs.
exactly.
So
So this is me, right? I'm not a big laptop type of person, but we did kind of need one, so I ended up figuring that out for that, and that's our laptop is the little Chromebook with the running Cosmic Desktop on there. Works great. I even added a little NVMe. I just like glued it to the back of it, a little enclosure with fins on it, and just ran a really sturdy data cable to the USB-C. So I got 500 gigs of NVMe storage on it. It lasts, even with that actually it does hurt the battery life a little bit, but even with that setup, I'm still getting about 6 hours. I think that's pretty good.
yeah. I don't know. I have a feeling that there's going to be some hardware purchases in my future because I do have this HP laptop that I have, but I just use it for testing distros. Like I don't take it anywhere because it's so gigantically huge, and I'm a weak person who can't lift 6 pounds. It's just it's beyond me. All right. Anybody else have anything that they'd like to share or talk about before we wrap this up? Going once, twice, 3 times. All right. So that's going to be the second Linux user group of the month, and we are done. So if you want to join us next time and you haven't made it this time, we do 2 Linux user groups every single month. The first one is the second Thursday of the month. That's at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time. We almost are certainly going to be doing a topic for that, just because I can't call it open mic morning, afternoon. It doesn't quite fit with the open mic night thing. So there's that one, or if you can't make that one because it's in the middle of the workday, we understand that. We do the second one, which is this one. It is the 4th Thursday of the month at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, or thereabouts. Usually I'm a little bit late because schedules are for other people. That's just the way that I put that. So anyways, if you want to join us, you can do so. You don't have to talk. There's been several people who just pop on, don't put their face on there, don't have a microphone or whatever, and they can just be part of the call. Or you can watch us on the Linux Cast YouTube channel, where we will stream it live and put the VOD up in case you miss it and you can't watch it live. So join us if you can. If you can't, watch it afterwards. We have a good time in the chat and here on the call. It's fantastic. So it's really good. So thanks everybody for joining us. We will see you guys next time.